It was a quiet evening in a small-town grocery store, the kind where everyone knows each other's faces. Emily stood in the checkout line, her baby nestled against her chest, tiny fingers curled around the fabric of her worn sweater. Her eyes were heavy with exhaustion, the kind that comes from sleepless nights and endless worries. In her hands, she held a single pack of diapers, just enough to last her child through the week. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a handful of coins. One by one, they dropped onto the counter, the soft metallic clink echoing louder in her ears than it should have. Each coin felt like a piece of her struggle laid bare for the world to see. The cashier's expression softened, offering her a faint smile, but even that couldn't ease the heat rising in Emily's cheeks. She quickly realized she didn't have enough. Her voice trembled as she whispered that she'd return the baby wipes she'd also picked up. She hoped no one behind her noticed, but she could feel the weight of eyes on her back. Her heart sank, wishing she could just disappear. Behind her stood a man, tall and impeccably dressed in a suit, clearly out of place in the modest store. His gaze was fixed on her, his brow furrowed as if her quiet struggle had stirred something deep within him. Emily kept her head down, clutching her baby tighter, unaware that in just a few moments, this stranger was about to change her night, and perhaps her life, in a way she could never have imagined. In that tense, silent space between shame and survival, Emily didn't know that kindness was standing right behind her, waiting to step forward. Emily's fingers tightened around the pack of diapers as the cashier read out the total. Her stomach sank. She had counted her coins twice before leaving home, but somehow it still wasn't enough. The realization hit her like a quiet punch to the chest. A wave of heat rushed to her face, and she lowered her eyes to the counter, wishing the moment would pass quickly. In a voice so soft it was almost a whisper, she said, "I'll put the baby wipes back." The words tasted bitter, each syllable carrying the weight of her pride slipping away. She slid the wipes toward the cashier, her hand trembling, hoping no one would notice the humiliation painted across her expression. She didn't dare look at the people behind her. The last thing she wanted was pity. But there was someone watching, someone who didn't avert his eyes. Just a step away stood a tall man in a perfectly tailored suit, his polished shoes gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Everything about him spoke of wealth and control, the kind of man who probably never had to count coins for groceries in his life. Yet his expression was not one of judgment. His brow was drawn tight, his eyes fixed on her with a strange intensity, as though he wasn't just seeing her, but remembering something. It was the look of someone whose heart had been touched in a place they hadn't visited in years. Emily, lost in her own embarrassment, didn't notice the shift in the air between them. She had no idea that the man in the suit wasn't just going to keep watching, he was about to step into her story and rewrite the rest of her evening. Emily's hand had barely touched the baby wipes when a deep, confident voice broke the quiet hum of the checkout line. "Add everything to my bill," the man behind her said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Her hand froze mid-motion. Slowly, she turned her head, eyes wide in disbelief. For a moment, she thought she had misheard him. "Sir, you don't have to," she began, her voice shaky, but he cut her off with a gentle firmness. "I want to." It wasn't pity in his eyes, it was something warmer, something steady. Without hesitation, he stepped forward and handed his sleek black card to the cashier. The simple swipe of it seemed to erase the tension in the air. The cashier glanced at Emily with a small, knowing smile, then began scanning not just the diapers and wipes, but a few extra baby essentials the man had quietly added, a jar of baby food, a pack of formula, even a soft baby blanket from the impulse rack. Emily stood frozen, unsure whether to protest or cry. Her cheeks burned, but this time it wasn't from shame, it was from the shock of unexpected kindness. She clutched her baby closer, feeling the steady rise and fall of his little breaths, her mind racing to understand why a complete stranger would do this. Around them, the other customers had gone quiet, some pretending not to stare, others openly watching the moment unfold. For Emily, the world seemed to blur, the fluorescent lights above turning soft and hazy. In that instant, the groceries weren't just groceries. They were hope, delivered in the form of a stranger's hand reaching out when she least expected it. The cool night air met them as they stepped out of the store, the sound of crickets humming faintly in the distance. Emily clutched the grocery bag in one hand, her baby resting peacefully against her shoulder. She turned to the man, her voice trembling. I don't even know how to thank you." He looked at her with a gentle smile, the kind that carried both warmth and understanding. "You don't need to," he said softly. For a brief moment, his gaze seemed to drift somewhere far away, to a memory only he could see. "Years ago," he continued, "my mother was just like you. She raised me alone, worked day and night, and still struggled to keep food on the table. One evening, when things were at their worst, a stranger stepped in, and helped us in a way I'll never forget. That small act carried us through a very dark time." Emily swallowed hard, her throat tight. He glanced at the sleeping baby in her arms and added, "I promised myself that if I ever had the chance, I'd do the same for someone else. Tonight, that someone is you." Tears blurred Emily's vision, but she didn't try to hide them. She realized this wasn't just generosity, it was a torch being passed from one life to another. The man wasn't just giving her groceries, he was giving her a moment of dignity, hope, and proof that kindness could survive in the world. She nodded, unable to speak, but in her heart she knew, one day, she would carry this kindness forward, just as he had. The quiet streets stretched ahead as Emily made her way home, the glow of the store fading behind her. The night was calm, the air crisp, and her baby slept soundly against her chest, his tiny breaths warm through her sweater. In her other hand, the grocery bag swung gently with each step, not heavy with just diapers and wipes, but with something far more precious. She felt different. Lighter. Not because her arms carried less, but because her heart carried more hope, more faith, more belief that good still existed in the world. The weight of her struggles was still there, but it no longer felt unbearable. Somewhere beyond the dim street lamps, the man in the suit, someone she now knew was a CEO, was driving back into the city, unaware of the ripple he had set in motion. To him, it might have been just another stop, another small gesture in a busy life. But to Emily, it was a turning point, a reminder that even in the hardest seasons, kindness could find its way in. As she stepped through her front door, she looked down at her baby's peaceful face. A quiet promise formed in her heart: one day, when she was able, she would be the one to step forward for someone else. She would be the stranger who changed another life, just as hers had been changed tonight. And so, under the calm night sky, Emily carried home not just supplies for her child, but a spark. A spark of compassion that she knew would never burn out. Emily's story began with a handful of coins and the quiet weight of struggle, but it became something much greater, a reminder that even the smallest act of kindness can change the course of someone's life. In one ordinary grocery store line, two strangers' paths crossed, a mother fighting to give her child what he needed, and a man honoring a promise born from his own past hardships. What might have been just a transaction became a moment of connection, proof that compassion can bridge worlds apart. That night, Emily didn't just walk home with groceries, she carried hope. And somewhere in the city, the man who helped her drove away, perhaps unaware of how deeply his choice had mattered. Yet his kindness would not end there. In Emily's heart, it had taken root, ready to grow and be passed on. This is how the cycle of humanity continues. Not through grand gestures seen by millions, but through quiet moments where one person chooses to lift another. Emily's vow to one day do the same ensures that the ripple will keep moving forward, touching lives she may never even know. In the end, it wasn't about money, status, or gratitude, it was about the simple, undeniable truth that kindness is never wasted.